Hi, everybody. It's Cannes, day 3, interview 5, and we're still here.
We're still here.
Still going. I think you're here till Friday.
Yes.
So I'm delighted. We've had, as those of you who have hopefully watched some of these interviews, we've had 4 leaders from our agency partners talking a little bit about the future of agencies. But if there's one big theme, I think, on the Croisette this year, it's the emergence or the continued emergence of the consulting firms in the marketing kind of value chain. Mm-hmm. And you guys are here in force. I'm delighted to introduce Nikki Mendonça, who is Global President of Operations at Accenture Interactive. So there's no one better to talk to about the emergence of the consultants. So thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure.
So what I thought we'd start with is maybe it'd be great if you could tell all of us at Facebook a little bit about your career, because I know you've spanned agency and now consultancy. Mm-hmm. And it would be great to understand what the drivers were. What did you see in agencies that made you want to go to consulting firms? What did you see in consulting firms that made you want to leave agencies?
Okay, so I am sparing my blushes. I'm 25 years in the industry and I have bought and sold and planned media. Started out ages ago at CIA, which was then acquired by WPP, spent a good time in Leo Burnett, moved to Capital Radio, and then was headhunted by Colin Gottlieb to start OMD Europe, and to basically scale OMD across EMEA. And that was in 2002, which was a fantastic opportunity. And I spent 16 years there before I was headhunted by Accenture to blow out and scale their marketing operations capability across the globe. I think that being 16 years running OMD across EMEA taught me a lot, and it opened my eyes to exactly what global and regional clients were looking for, and exactly how product and service offerings needed to evolve. And I found that, to be honest, after having 16 years, great success. I mean, we scaled the whole of the region to over $1 billion in revenue, and it was very, very successful. I then felt that we had reached a bar, a very high bar. But then I thought, okay, there's a new conversation happening. And that was really pivoting around the fact that marketing transformation was becoming inextricably linked to business transformation. And I didn't feel that I was representing a sandpit that was big enough to actually represent the right value contribution to a client to be able to pivot their business. Because media was a subset of advertising, which was a subset of marketing, which was a subset of business transformation. So I wanted to leapfrog a number of levels, get into a global business transformation conversation with the C-suite at the client side, and really be able to make a difference to their business growth.
And do you think so? Thank you. That's the drivers are super clear, and I recognise a lot of what you describe. One of the things that I look at the agency ecosystem, and lots of the senior agency leaders will talk about shifting upstream. I think they're very conscious of the consultants moving into their space, and that requires more strategic talent. Do you think agencies have got that talent today? Do you think agencies have to completely reappraise how they're composed, how they're structured? What's your sense as to how agencies need to evolve?
Well, within agencies, obviously, you have creative agencies and you still have media agencies, because you still have that delineation, which rightfully or wrongfully, is there. It might not necessarily be what the clients want, but it's there. There are a lot of talented operators at the agency side, but I would say predominantly in the area of desire building and excellent storytelling, but not necessarily in the space of delivery.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I think I would want to attract and procure some of that talent into Accenture, because Accenture, with 440,000 employees as we are now, a technology powerhouse, 4,000 or 5,000 data scientists working away on 175 diamond clients, huge global diamond clients. But we're not necessarily excellent at the desire building and the storytelling. So it really is interesting how now, to be able to really nose cone the growth agenda for a client, you need equal parts of heart and science. And sometimes you need more science than art. Sometimes you need more art than science. I would say that still Accenture has more science than art, and I would like to be able to attract some of that art from the agency world, because it is very, very important to be able to tell stories, and especially as it pertains to fueling brand differentiation in a highly cluttered marketplace. Yeah. And they really are. There's some excellent operators on the agency side to do that. What they don't have is they don't have a technology backbone. And I think they're going to come a cropper, because that's difficult to suddenly introduce on the fly.
So it's very clear what muscles you describe you want to build. And I think let's lay the myth to rest, because what the naysayers would say is a business like Accenture, systems integrator, platforms business, they're consultants, they're in the grey suits. How can they possibly cope with a creative culture, with creative people, with acquiring creative assets? What's your experience of that been?
My experience has been, I joined Accenture and suddenly met a whole smorgasbord of people who had come from agencies, had come from clients. So they had that sort of sparkling DNA. I still think we need more of it, but there was still a lot of people. Accenture Interactive are 25,000 strong.
Wow. Okay.
That is quite a big army of people who are out interfacing with the marketing fraternity. I do think that, the questions and the problems and the challenges that clients have currently are big.
Yeah.
And therefore, creativity has to be very purposeful. Creativity cannot just be creativity for creativity's sake. It has to be data substantiated, and it has to prove that it's going to actually grow a client's business. That's where we're coming in. Because, I must admit, sometimes in my history and life in the industry, which as I said is 25 years, sometimes there are people who are too romantic about this industry, and way too romantic.
Okay.
And that romance doesn't necessarily deliver at the top or bottom line of a client's business. And I think that's a problem. I think this is time for marketing to grow up.
Yeah, and I think increasingly that's the environment that we're in. Many of those big diamond clients that you refer to are under huge institutional and structural pressure themselves. And to your point, advertising, communications, marketing strategy has to pay back. It can't be an end
Absolutely.
in and of itself.
It has to be properly rationalised and substantiated as a potential growth lever. And if it is not actually a lever for growth, then what is it there for?
So tell me, as you build out these services, I think what you guys talk very eloquently about is kind of orientating around the consumer and the consumer journey and consumer experience. What does that mean? Does that mean you need to have an incredible array of capabilities? We're talking everything from sort of e-commerce platforming right through to website or mobile experience, right through to creativity, and then perhaps beyond that to implementational media buying. Talk to me about the ambition and the breadth of the ambition at Accenture.
Absolutely, great question. The ambition really is, first and foremost, frictionless delivery across strategy and execution, because that is what the clients are demanding. They have suffered from separate P&Ls within the agency holding companies, and they're getting very frustrated. Also, we need to be able to drive better integration across the historic, no longer needed delineation between paid, owned and earned, because it is a nonsense. So we have to leapfrog very quickly into an integration of multiple touch points. Yep. And we also have to make sure that not only are we activating across those multiple touch points, but we've also got an eye on conversion, because now all those touch points are potentially shoppable. So now that will help put our strategies on steroids in terms of being able to return something back to the business. So, you are marketing for growth all the time. And now our people will sit there and they will be able to design strategies that can actually deliver back to the business, because you can do proper multi-touch point attribution. You know what is working, you know what isn't working, and you know actually how to almost optimize that on the fly. That is the world that we live in now, which is incredibly exciting, which I definitely couldn't have said we were there 5 years ago. So that's how fast things are moving. So it's wonderful that we're actually in a space that can tangibly demonstrate its value contribution to a company's P&L. brilliant. And that is the ambition, that we're at the sweet spot of that at the moment.
And what's the magic to making that work? Because when you look into the agency ecosystem, different groups have tried different things, but I suppose the one that's most talked about is kind of WPP's Horizontality, with lots of different teams potentially originating from different businesses that you've acquired. How do you drive that collaboration that you need to create to deliver those solutions to clients?
Yes, and again, we still have a challenge because clients are still siloed.
Okay.
Now, but that is changing very quickly. I think a lot of clients, and definitely Fortune 100, have got the memo that you have to bring sales and marketing together. You have to deal with a full funnel customer journey. And I also think that a lot of D2C brands have accelerated that change within more established companies, because they have seen their own business be blindsided by D2Cs who have had a much more full funnel stack mentality towards their business. So now we're having conversations with clients, big clients, particularly in the CPG world, who have realized that e-com needs to come out of incubation, needs to be integrated into a multi-touch point world.
Yeah.
And now they're looking at, like you say, a full funnel customer journey, and we're helping workshop that with clients and understanding, okay, how does that then influence a different marketing operating model for your company? And those are big conversations, and those are big redesigns of how a company is structured and the internal plumbing of a company. But they are live. We're having lots and lots of live conversations. I think clients realize they cannot continue to operate in their siloed structures.
And I think what's interesting, you talk about how client organisations need to evolve and how they are evolving. But I suppose, thinking aloud, that's a competitive advantage if you're a management consultant and you have folks in Accenture whose job is organisational structure and design, which is perhaps not a muscle that comes so naturally.
Operating models is our sweet spot.
So listen, a couple more questions and I'm
Okay.
going to wrap. The first one is about Facebook, if you'd let me indulge myself just for kind of 2 minutes. How do you see, I mean, we obviously had a great relationship between Facebook and Omnicom. How do you see your relationship now that you're at Accenture Interactive? How do you see the value exchange between our two companies?
Well, again, very good question. I'm looking at that at the moment. Obviously, when you are, and obviously in my role as leader of OMD EMEA, the relationship was still quite transactional because it was springboarding off of a volume relationship, of an exchange of money, which obviously was important. Now at Accenture, I actually want to be able to partner with Facebook to develop more tangible differentiation in our partnership for clients. And that could pivot off of data. We know that sometimes data is a four-letter word, but you know, increasingly important as we build out sort of CDPs as a service. I do think as well that I would want to be able to develop better activation strategies. So say, for example, even being able to fully leverage Messenger and WhatsApp and Watch. I want to be able, on behalf of our clients, to be first out with certain, big pieces of innovation. So I think there's a spectrum of stuff that we can do together. And of course, let's not forget, I do want to team better on marketing performance evaluation, because every single client is asking us for proper, full, multi-channel attribution, and for that to feed a closed loop of performance measurement. So I would like to partner more with Facebook in making that happen.
So I'll take that second one as a challenge. Thank you. and yeah, I think I'm inspired by, I think actually the client centricity of your ambition is really, because sometimes the conversation with agency is about what can you do for us. It's interesting to hear you say, what can you do for our clients?
It's all about, if we're not delivering for our clients, then we don't have a business.
Brilliant. Well, we will focus with you on that, and I know you're talking to Jane. So my last question, it's Wednesday, you're here till, what's your top tip for surviving a full week of Cannes?
Pace yourself.
Pace yourself.
And I do think that, pace yourself and work out, there are so many bright people to engage with here. And you look at the spectrum of what you could get involved in, but you actually zero in on the high value touch points and people to interface with and things that are really going to make a difference to your business. And I think that's also the way to do Cannes. You still have some fun, but predominantly look at your diary and look at what can you really do here that you can't do anywhere else.
Well, hopefully this conversation,
yes.
This was definitely for me a high value interface.
Definitely,
and
for
it was
me too.
definitely for
Thank
Facebook
you.
massively value additive. So thank you very much
Pleasure.
indeed, Nikki, for your time.
Thank you.
And have a brilliant rest of festival.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you.